Sup, fucker?
How the hell are ya?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty fantastic, actually.
Fantastical. Any particular reason you're doing fantastic?
Well, we finally got to we broke our cherries on the, a little bit sore, but we broke our cherries on the ghost hunting.
Yeah, I'm glad you clarified on that. It was dark.
Amongst other things.
It was dark. There were times we were in rooms, just two of us, and cherries got broken.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in the dark, and you just get, like, the glint of the moonlight off of somebody else's eyes. You don't know who it is.
Yeah.
Or you're hoping for, something, and it just happens.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with that little touch of fear when you're in the dark together, ghost hunting, and then, you try to stay in close proximity to alleviate that fear. Next thing you know,
you're having anal sex on the floor amongst owl shit in a barn that's 150 years old. Hell yeah, dude.
Hell yeah. So, yeah, for context, we had been talking about going ghost hunting for, like, 6 years.
Oh, yeah, at least.
The whole gang of us that went, so it was Spencer, myself, Scott, and T. Yeah, when we all worked in the same building, we talked about it like ad nauseum.
Yeah.
It was, and finally, years later, it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to Benson Grist Mill here in Stansbury, Utah. Stansbury.
I always thought that was kind of like an accent thing, like a Utah accent thing. But that's actually how it's spelled.
Yeah.
So I was like, you mean Stansbury?
Yeah, Stansbury.
Like a berry?
Yeah, what are those candies called that you get at Easter?
Schnozberries.
No, the ones that use the same commercial for the last 40 years.
Oh, Cadbury.
Cadbury eggs. Even though it's spelled with a U, but it's...
Cadbury.
Berry?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's like a English thing.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Cadbury eggs.
Enjoy a Cadbury egg.
My lord.
Have some... What is that? Do you like Cadbury eggs?
I used to. I don't care for them anymore.
Yeah, I never liked them.
But I'm not much of a sweets guy anymore.
I was always so excited. Oh, we got a Cadbury egg. And bite into it, like, yeah, anybody else want this?
Well, you always think of it like from the commercials, where it's almost like a liquidy inside.
Yeah.
But then you bite into it and it's just like pure sugar.
It's just grainy.
Yeah. It's
I would say slime, but it's more viscous than slime. It's I don't know.
It's pretty I imagine if you put like a little bit of cornstarch and sugar in Elmer's paste.
Yeah.
That's probably what it is. And there's a yellow dot in there.
Oh man,
that's supposed to be the yolk.
Paste in a long time, dude.
Well, what are you doing right now? We can run to the store.
Shit, we can make some. We'll just paste water and flour.
Something like that. But yeah, so the whole ghost hunt thing was a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
And I tried to keep my expectations really low on what we were going to see and experience, and also kind of how the footage was going to turn out and things like that. So I try to like temper my expectation and not be like, oh shit, we're going to have like the best produced show ever on this one episode. And I was like, no, there's going to be a lot of fucking failures. And there was, but overall it was a really fun experience.
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was, there was several moments that I was sitting there and like, we're actually fucking doing this, man. And, but yeah, it was really fun just to get out there and finally do it. And you start feeling kind of weird or self-conscious about asking questions to the air.
I felt that too. I was like trepidatious. Like, I feel like such a fucking derp just sitting here like, asking,
do you want to talk to us?
Do you want to talk to us? What's your name? But you kind of get past it and you go, it is what it is. It's just like when you start a podcast episode at first, you're kind of clunky or
Yeah.
Or like when you're on camera, you kind of have that clunkiness where it's like you have to transition.
What do
into
I do with my hands?
Yeah. What do I do? And then you kind of go, fuck, I'm just going to do what I normally do and just act like an ass all the time.
I kind of felt like, went back to that kindergarten self of when you first go to class and you don't know anybody and you ask somebody what their name is and there's just no response.
Yeah.
Just ignore you. Okay, never mind. Should I stop talking?
Because they feel the same way. They're like, no.
Yeah.
I was
you
thinking
get over
more,
it pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely smooth out of it, and I think all it takes is one person to actually kind of like break the ice on that situation. Because like as soon as that spirit box comes out, T is just on it like Blue Bonnet, and then you're just like, okay, it's all good. Right. This is what we're doing, you know. And we didn't really experience hardly anything, and it really kind of puts more into perspective of all the other videos that I've watched of other like ghost hunting channels or shows that have been there and had all these crazy experiences, and you're like, yeah, none of that shit happened.
Yeah.
Like, not even a little bit.
Yeah, and that's something that I've often wondered about shows like this is, because I do believe in paranormal stuff, ghost entities, but I've often wondered how much of that stuff is energy that's following these people around from place to place. So, I mean, and they open themselves up and they're just talking to the same spirit that's just kind of with them all the time and they don't know it. And feeding them answers.
Yeah, I'd never really thought about it through that lens of like, maybe just one spirit has attached themselves to these people and that's who they're always dealing with. They just go to other places.
Yeah.
Which has got to be exhausting because it's like, dude, this bathroom at the mall is haunted as fuck. But no, it's just you.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and if the spirit is always with this person when they're researching the location that they're going to go do their paranormal investigation at, maybe that spirit is also learning the names and the specific keywords that these people are looking for. As it seems like in the videos, so they'll get a piece of information and then kind of look for that information to come through on their, devices, which we kind of experienced. The one thing that happened with us.
Yeah. So I'll say there was no like, I can't even call it a paranormal experience, but there was a couple of anomalies.
Right.
I'll put it that way. So at one point we were on the bridge over the murky little pond water, and we're using the spirit box, and Spencer asked, "What's your name?" And it was clear to the three of us that were there, so it was you, me, and Kara, and you hear the name Alice come across the spirit box. Now, Alice was the name of the little girl who drowned in that pond.
Right.
And so that was interesting. Again, it's more of an anomaly, like I can't explain it. That doesn't mean it's unexplainable.
Yeah.
But that was definitely the one moment where I was like, holy shit, maybe we have something here.
Right. And for people that don't know, the spirit box is a device that it's basically a radio that's sweeping through all the channels. So we had it set on AM, and it sweeps through in 2-second bursts across or you can dial down the duration of how long each sweep takes. And I think we had it set at like 2 seconds per sweep.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Or times 2 speed, or whatever that dial sets.
And so it sweeps through channels, and so the theory is that if you're communicating with the spirit, they should be able to talk over multiple sweeps as it's changing through each channel on the FM dial. So you might be able to communicate with the spirit them using the energy off of that device. So we got what sounded like to us the name Alice that came through pretty clear. Of course, Alice doesn't take a whole lot of time to say, so it could have been one sweep of a channel.
Yeah.
And it could have been just cut off from another word that somebody's saying on that channel, like malice or who knows what.
Phallus.
Yeah.
Fellatio.
Fellatio. And we just got the Alice part.
Well, we also heard the name Steve
But
twice.
yeah, we heard the name Steve twice. Really clear. But yeah, also, that was the only time in the night, and we talked about this before too, was we didn't want to go in there and look for certain things, but it happened. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't want to go in there and with the story ingrained in our mind that we're gonna look for Alice and we're gonna look for, this certain things that have happened that we've seen in other videos. But when we heard that name Alice come through, that was the only time in the night that I had just like a shiver go down my spine.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure it was just something because I knew in my mind that this little girl Alice had drowned there, and I've seen videos of other people getting Alice come over the radio or the spirit box, and for us to experience that, I don't know if it was just my own body, like my own physical response to hearing it in person, or if there was really something there that gave me a chill. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint one or the other. I mean, the obvious answer would be that was your natural physical response, and it wasn't a response of fear. Maybe it was more based in like a sense of anxiety of, holy shit, what did we just capture? Or on the way other end of the spectrum, like, was Alice there at the moment and she kind of gave you that chill or that sense or whatever? Maybe she touched you and that's what triggered that response. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
And that's where ghost hunting is very pseudoscience.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to base a lot of it based on what we've already seen other people do. That doesn't mean that's the correct way.
Right.
But we're just doing.
We're far from professionals.
Yeah.
We're just mimicking the shit that we've seen.
I can't remember what ghost hunting show I was watching. And this guy, he's clearly like an amateur ghost hunter, just like you and me and everybody else. And he's like, I'm a scientist. Like, no, the fuck you're not.
And what science do you have a degree in?
A degree in. And you can be an amateur scientist. There's that, it's totally a real thing, but not in ghost hunting.
Yeah.
That was kind of going back to the research aspect of it. That's one thing that I learned about that experience. And from the outset of finding out that's where we were going to go, is I didn't want to tell anybody where we were going to go. I just wanted everybody in the team to be like completely in the dark and not know anything or have any kind of trepidation about anything, not have any knowledge about the place we were going to go, so they go in completely blind. But me being me, I was super excited about it, and I leaked that secret right away, basically. Told everybody this is the date and the time, and I've got all the equipment and blah blah blah. All you got to do is when it comes time, I'll tell you where to go. And then 2 days later, it's like, oh my god, we're going to Benson Grist Mill. This is so fucking cool.
Let's watch the videos right now.
So yeah, don't ever tell me any secret. I'll just blab it out. Fuck it. Yeah, I kind of thought about it going forward that's the way it should be, where we can plan that out to where it's like, let's say only you and I know where we're going to go. And everybody else in the team has to go in completely blind, so that you don't go to a place and be like, oh, John Doe died here, and then pareidolia will kick in and you'll be like, oh my god, that's the ghost of John Doe over there in the corner. That's exactly how he dressed. I saw it in the video.
Yeah.
Instead being like, dude, there was a guy over there in a white t-shirt and jeans, you know, a ghost figure in white t-shirt and jeans. That was creepy. And then you can go back and show them that information of, well, this is how the guy who died typically dressed, and you can connect it on your own, and you'll get more out of it after the fact than in the moment.
Yeah.
But just having like a direction that you're trying to go, I think is kind of a bad idea.
I agree. And I know we were talking about doing that, but as soon as we got there, I just jumped into telling the fucking stories of what we had learned and shit.
But I really loved that aspect. And you were like the perfect person to do it. And like watching the clips, I was like, fuck, man, that's really good. And the number one thing I took away from that, with you know, the things that didn't work or didn't quite work the way I wanted them to, number one is structure. And having, let's say, just like you and I go to the location first and talk to the, you know, the tour guide or somebody who's had history, and then breaking down that history on camera to preface the video, but still not have the rest of the team there for it. I think that was like one of the number one things that I thought about doing going forward to make that video much more interesting.
Yeah.
But not like in the Zach Bagans kind of way, where they're having all this paranormal shit happening while they're talking to a tour guide, and I'm just like, get the fuck out of here.
I just heard a creak. That's a ghost.
That's a ghost.
Yeah, another thing to go along with that whole Alice situation coming through on the spirit box was, so I was carrying around an EMF detector all night long, and I didn't really get anything except for on the bridge. So when you guys were in the pavilion and T was in the schoolhouse, I was walking back across the bridge to come back to see where you guys were at. And as I was walking across it, I had it in my pocket, my back pocket, and it started beeping. And so I was standing there for a minute trying to figure out what the fuck was beeping. Like, I pulled out my phone and I was like, what is that? And then finally realized it was the EMF detector in my back pocket. And I pulled it out, and it's usually, its baseline is 0.
Yeah.
And the bridge has nothing on it. It's just a bridge that goes over water. And throughout the night, it had gone up like to 0.6, 0.8. And I pulled it out of my pocket, and it was at 7.5 or something like that.
Oh, like that high?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I was walking back and forth, and I was walking back and forth on the bridge probably 5-10 minutes. And so I started taking pictures. That's why I was taking pictures of the bridge. Just to see if there was something I could catch on a camera still. And for about 5 minutes, every time I would cross right over the center, it would just spike. And it would go up to 5 or 7. The highest it got was like 7.8. But then it started to dissipate and got back down to... And then when you guys finally came over there, when I came over there and we walked back, nothing. It was back at 0. It wouldn't...
Very interesting.
Move. Yeah. And so I kept trying to get Scott to catch it on camera. And so he was walking in front of me, and I was like, oh, look, it spiked. And it would spike up to like 2, and then he turned around to film it, and it would just drop. And then he would turn around again. It was like 3 or 4 times I told him it was spiking, and as soon as he turned around to capture it, it would drop back down to 0.
Very interesting. I didn't know it got up that high.
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing some of it, like you said, 0.5, 0.6, and maybe it will go just a little above 1, which is still weird for an open air ambient temperature, like, because you can put an EMF reader in like a really hot closet, and you'll get a small reading, like a 2. And if you're near like really rushing water, it does put off a small amount of like radiant electricity, but it's so infinitesimal, like you got to have it right next to the water to read it. But you're talking about literally just a bridge, and it's just stagnant water underneath, and
right.
There's not even a whole lot. I wouldn't even say that water's a foot deep.
No, it's basically just a marsh with just bulrushes and a little bit of water that would be fucking annoying to fall into, but
Yeah, that's why anytime I was like over there, I'm holding on to whatever piece of equipment for dear life so I don't drop it in there. Because if it goes in there, it's staying in there. I'm not going after it.
Especially because we were hearing noises. So we were on the other bridge. We kept hearing something down in the bushes. And you and Scott walked up by that tree. And we heard, the classic raccoon noise they play in movies. Yeah. We heard that super loud. It was probably just under the bridge, maybe 5-10 feet away from us down there in the somewhere in those weeds.
Yeah.
But it was pretty loud. I thought T was going to shit his pants.
So when me and Scott walked off to that tree, there's actually ruins of a building. So that it's like a concrete foundation. And then the walls that are still remaining are made out of rocks, just rocks with mortar in between. And like I'm standing up here and I'm looking down, and it's like 4 or 5 feet deep or something. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then you're, what the fuck was that? From the distance. And I was like, oh my God, they heard something. Let's go back. So we're not running. It's still dark and shit, but we're kind of beating feet. Like, get over there. What was that? Did you guys see something? And it was like, yeah, I think there's a raccoon down there. And I was like, fuck. Yeah, I gotta throw in there that the owls added some super powerful ambiance, because every once in a while you hear just the owls fucking screeching.
Yeah.
And like at first it startled the shit out of me. I was like, what the fuck was that?
Sounded like the creatures in I Am Legend.
Yeah, it was a lot like that. Owls are not to be fucked with. In fact, when we were in the mill itself, I was like, I would rather deal with a ghost than get mauled by a fucking owl.
Right?
Those talons are not to be trifled with.
Yeah. So when we were walking up to the mill, I guess we went to that first gear room or whatever it was, that not the mill house itself, but the one right next to it. So you guys all went in there, and I went to go use the bathroom. And I walked up. I didn't want to cut through the grass to stir up all the mosquitoes in there. And so I walked up to where the pathway went across, and that owl was sitting up on the lamppost right there, right in front of me. And every 5 feet and it would screech like that, and I was just like, oh, fuck, man. Staring at it, and it's staring at me.
Today is the day I get rabies shots.
I was a bit concerned about getting swooped on.
Well, so having gone back and watched pretty much all the footage, there's multiple times where you see an owl, and there's the light post right next to the mill, like closer to the road, and it's like probably 5 or 6 times you see that owl just takes off from that lamppost.
Really?
And then I think we turn around, and then he's like, all right, I'm going back. And then the camera would turn toward him, he'd be like, fuck this, I'm out, and fly away. Maybe that owl was a ghost. I don't know.
There is no owl.
There was actually multiple owls.
Yeah.
And the first time we heard it over by the schoolhouse, and you heard that screech, and I think we all kind of had a similar thought of there's like a big cat over there, like a small mountain lion or a cougar or something. And then it was like, oh, no, it's a fucking owl, and you see it fly out of the woods, and you're like, that's just as bad.
Yeah. It's just a mountain lion with wings.
Pretty much. The fucking claws that'll take your eye right out. The other great ambiance, well, there was 2 other great ambiances that really added to the fun of it. One is that it was a full moon, and it had like passing cloud cover, so you'd have those cool visuals of the night sky like in a werewolf movie or something. So that was always like, you'd look up and you'd see it, and it felt kind of ominous and all that, even though there was like nothing going on with the investigation part. Like, that was so cool, because wherever you were walking, you just look up and see it, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
kind of feels like Halloween, you know.
And it was like the soundtrack of our D&D, the Barovia background playing in my head.
Well, the other thing that I really enjoyed was going into the mill, that creaky old door.
Yeah.
And I actually got that on camera, so it's like, I'm going to make a clip out of that one for sure.
I can definitely see how people going into that place and just the way that it looks and the sounds of, the things that are outside, loud crickets and screeching owls and the squeaky door as it opens up could put you in a spooky mood, or give you that vibe just going into it.
Yeah.
Whereas myself, I know you like scary movies. Myself, I love that shit, and so it made me excited. I wasn't scared at all. So there wasn't really a time throughout the night that I had any kind of uneasy feeling about being anywhere around in that.
Yeah, exactly. Again, kind of going back to the, like what you were saying, every once in a while you'd have that thought, fuck, we're actually doing this, Between that and kind of having those ambiance moments or the things that kind of played into that creepy kind of nature, there was oftentimes I felt like a little kid in a candy store, and I was just like, this is so awesome, but even though nothing happened, I still walked away from it going, that was so cool, and it was so much fun, and like quantifying it all together, like, yeah, I'm hanging out with the homies and we're doing this thing we've been talking about doing forever, and we did have these anomalies that kind of played into it and made it more fun, and just like all of that put together cut away any like disposition I had to be disappointed, because I was just like, I don't even care that we didn't find anything. It doesn't even matter. It was a good time, and it was well worth it.
For sure, it was fun. What was the other? So another thing that stood out to me, and T and I were talking about it before we left, or actually, I think it was before the lightsaber duel. You guys were walking over there, and T and I were talking about it. So when we first were getting our shit situated, Dave pulled out some walkie-talkies, and you had programmed them to a specific channel, so everybody was on the same channel.
Yeah, plus they have a lock function on them, because all the buttons are on the outside. So if you locked them, when you push the buttons on the outside, they don't do anything. Then you only have the call button and the push to talk button that actually function.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
So we turned on all the walkie-talkies and checked them, made sure they were all working. And then we were assembling. Dave was showing us how all the stuff that he had operates, and we were talking about how we can use them. All of a sudden, one of the radios goes up, and it's just one of them that went off. One. And it sounded like Morse code. It was like beep, 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 beep.
Yeah.
Beep, 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 beep.
And it was intermittent, too. It would stop for a couple minutes and pick right back up.
Right. And so we were all, that's weird. One of these radios is doing something funky. So we sat there for another little while getting our stuff situated, and then we headed over to, when it started getting dark, we headed over to where the schoolhouse was, and right across from that was a little building. So Scott and T went into the schoolhouse, and you and I went into that trailer.
Yeah.
And so we went in there, and we didn't even know what was in there. We just went in there and started investigating. And I bumped into a table, put my hand down, and heard something beep. And so I thought that I pushed something, and I turned my flashlight on to see what it was. And it's a fucking...
The Morse code pad.
Morse code pad thing that you can... And I started tapping on it, and it actually works.
Yeah.
It emits a... So I was like, beep, 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 beep. I didn't even put that together that we had just heard that hour or two later until we were talking about it, T and I.
Yeah, because I remember it kind of got brought up, and I remember it just like instantly clicking in my mind that this radio is kind of outputting this Morse code, even though it's like all the radios you guys had were on the table, and I had mine clipped to my pocket. and it was in lock mode too, so I wasn't touching it or anything. But then after like seeing that and putting it together, I was like, holy shit. And to boot, that little building was locked until we went to it, because they gave us the keys and basically told us that any building that had a padlock will open with these keys. So everything stayed closed until we got to it.
Yeah.
And that was the first time we had actually went into that room, was when I unlocked it and you and I went in. And it didn't even get open before that.
Right.
Which was even weirder.
So yeah, So we got there, the whole grounds for the Benson Grist Mill grounds. It's surrounded by a big metal gate all the way around it. And the lady who was there with us came and just opened the gate for us, came in and just told us, okay, I'm going to be up at this office. If you guys need anything, here's the keys. You can open up. You can go in whatever building you want to. So she went straight to the office and just stayed there all night long. We locked the gate to the main entrance, and so we were locked in to the place.
Yeah.
And everything else had a padlock on it.
Yeah, I think there was one building that had a combination padlock, so we couldn't get in there. And then there was one more building we couldn't go in. But other than that, we had free reign to the whole place.
Yeah.
Which was totally awesome. Yeah, again, it does feel more like an anomaly than anything.
Yeah.
And there's that part of you that wants to kind of stretch that, like the truth of it,
right,
to fit that kind of narrative. But whereas, you, I, and T and Scott, we're all pretty logical about that sort of thing. We go, dude, that was bananas. It was crazy. Can't explain it, but it was fucking cool.
Yeah.
And I think that was really, when we first started talking about going ghost hunting and stuff like that, where I think we were all in like agreement that it wasn't going to be some over dramatic, overwrought kind of thing of like, Ghost Adventures or Taps or something like that, where it's like every tiny little thing is a ghost or a demon or something, where we all kind of wanted to go at it from like a logical standpoint to have an experience and go, yeah, I don't know what that was, but
yeah,
I felt this way and this is what I saw, kind of thing.
Yeah. Kind of like when we were inside of that Morse code building. And so I was moving to one side and we were using an SLS camera to see if we could get any figures on camera. And so I was like shifting past you, and we heard a sound that sounded like a hiss. And so we both kind of
instinctually looked for a snake.
Yeah, we were like, what the fuck was that? Thinking that it was a snake or something, just because it sounded just like a hiss of a rattlesnake or something.
Yeah.
So we sat there for probably a couple minutes trying to figure out if there was anything under the table or on one of the shelves that was hiding there that was potentially dangerous for us.
Yeah.
Whether it be a wild animal or whatever. And so I was moving back and forth trying to figure it out, and finally I realized it was my ass rubbing against the table. And it was just a piece of...
It was like a burr on the wood. Just like one little sliver hanging off, and it would just like glide ever so gently.
Yeah. And it just sounded like... And so it was, just my ass hissing at Dave.
Well, there was a couple other things that also happened that weren't like huge deals, but they were interesting. So Kara was downstairs while the rest of us were going up and down the other stairs onto the other floors in the mill, and one of the motion lights went off completely, like 15, 20 feet away from her, just randomly went off. And you could chalk it up to it just being like an old creaky building, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think something happened to it that made it move and made it go off, but I don't think it was the building itself.
Yeah.
Because it was on a pretty stable platform, and it was just totally at random, and it only did it once.
So T and Scott had just gone upstairs, and you just went down the stairs.
Yeah.
And so on that table or barrel that it was sitting on, there was a motion sensor cat ball, and then a REM pod, one of the REM pods. And so I was sitting there with Karen. I had the SLS, and I was kind of filming the laser grid that we had set up with that, just to see if any shadows would go through. Or so the REM pod went off, and I looked over, and the cat ball was moving also. And Kara's like, "Oh, there's something over here." And so I started filming in that direction with the SLS. I don't know if I was actually filming, because I did that like 5 or 6 times, where I was holding it for like 10 minutes before realizing that I hadn't turned the fucking thing on yet.
Well, you get so distracted, like looking at the screen,
right,
that you forget to push the button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was sitting there with her for a minute, and so it was further down. She was to my right, about 10, 15 feet away on this bench, and then it was another 15 feet away from her, maybe 10 feet, to where this cat ball and the thing was going off. So I was like, okay, well, it's closer to her. We'll go downstairs. And she had her phone recording audio.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, I'm going to go downstairs with you and see if there's something there that wants to attack her.
Sacrificial
So I
lamb.
left my wife to get attacked by the spirits. So yeah, we went down. I came downstairs, and then we went upstairs, and she was telling us how it was going off. It had gone off. But I saw it, and I heard the REM pod go off.
That's interesting, because simultaneous to that, when I went downstairs by myself, that was like the only moment of that was like the only chilling moment I had. And at first it was I couldn't really get it, because it was like, is it just because I'm going into this dark basement by myself and I don't have my light on, I can't see anything? Or was it something else? But it kind of felt ominous. And then I went down there, and after a moment or two, it just kind of passed.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe I was just being a wimp about going into a dank old dark basement by myself. That kind of triggered that little kid emotion in my brain. But then you also have to like apply that through the lens of what you guys experienced with the ball moving and the light going off and the REM pod going off. What if there was something right there at that moment that triggered all those objects? Because I was literally standing right below it. So maybe there was something there, maybe not. But I know that was literally the only time I felt anything kind of like ominous.
And that basement does have a weird feeling, but it's not just a basement. You go downstairs, and there's big cogs of the machine that the mill ran down there that have belts that drive the pretty much just all the gears of the mill house that are down there.
Yeah.
And there are shafts that go down probably another 10, 15 feet into where there's water down there, and low-hanging ceilings. And when you go down there and it's dark as fuck, you feel like you sense things in front of your face, because you're afraid that there's something low-hanging that you're going to bash your head on. And then also these open voids that go down, so you're feeling a little bit of cold air maybe that's coming up from these shafts, and so it just has a weird feeling. But I think a lot of that is your senses trying to get accustomed to what's going on in this dark fucking space.
For sure. And your spatial awareness is trying to kick in at the same time.
Right.
And like you said, you have all this machinery and these low bridges and things like that, and your senses really are trying to heighten to, kind of protect you. Like your eyesight is trying to adjust to the darkness. Your ears are super tuned because you're trying to like almost use echolocation. It's a subconscious kind of thing. But then on top of that, you have like it's kind of a dank smell because of all that standing water that's under there, and you're already kind of a little heightened because you're there trying to find something paranormal in nature.
Right.
So yeah, the basement was definitely the only place that I was like, okay, this spot in particular is creepy. But then I kind of got a similar feeling when we went to the very top level, but it was more related to the owls because I was like, this is the spot you're going to get attacked by a fucking owl is up here, because they had like a nest and shit up there too.
Yeah.
And you could see where they would claw through that like weird insulation that they had, and you're just like, God, I'd rather see a fucking ghost than deal with that owl, period.
Also, there being multiple, probably like 30 or 40 good-sized owl pellets on the ground.
Oh, yeah. On the way home, I was like, I gotta blow my nose, because I cannot stand the smell of owl shit anymore, and it's just trapped in your nasal cavity, and you're like, God, that's so gross.
Yeah, I got home and took off my shoes before I came in the house, and then as soon as I got in here, I took off my pants and threw them in the laundry and went upstairs and took a shower just because I felt gross.
Well, between that and like the bug spray, because bug spray always makes your skin feel disgusting. Yeah, I definitely had to do the same thing.
So yeah, I think we were definitely haunted by the bugs out there. I don't know if you don't know, Stansbury Park in the spring and fall just gets swarmed with these little gnats called no-see-ums that will just eat you alive. And we were definitely just walking through clouds and clouds of them. They're attacking our eyes, flying into our mouth and nose and ears, and all of us are wearing hoodies. Dave didn't, but T and I both had our hoodies and our hoods up.
Yeah.
just to keep the gnats off of our head. But
yeah, the bugs were atrocious. I mean, thankfully you kind of had that late night dew level kind of come in and settle the bugs down, but it was still like a conscious effort to not walk through the grass and stir them back up. Yeah. So I told you about this, but after I got home that night, and I was still like super amped up, and I was wound up and just kind of like trying to come down from that experience. And so I turned on the Ghost Adventures episode where they went to Benson Grist Mill. And it's so bad. Like, granted, that show's not... It's like the best comedy on TV. Let's be real. But I remember one scene they're talking about, I heard this door creak, and it's just this small door on the floor, and it's like an angle-shaped door. And he's like, I heard it creak, and then they pan the camera over, and it's open like an inch, maybe. And I remember touching that door and moving it, and it's so like warped and shit that it's like you have to pry that door because it's just dragging the ground as you try to open it. Like, get out of here. It's so dumb.
Yeah. Plus, everything is fucking made of wood and nails, and so every single step that you take is just creaks and moans and fucking... I felt like I was going to fall through the floor a lot of the time.
There was a couple spots I was kind of worried that I was too.
Yeah.
And what's funny about that place is no matter what level you're on, no matter what room you're in, wherever there's noise, you can't tell where it's actually coming from.
Right.
Because I remember there was a point where I was in the basement still by myself, and I could hear footsteps above me, but it was like T and Scott were 2 levels above me, and it sounded like they're right over my head. And there would be times where even if you're in the same room with somebody and you hear a noise, you think it's coming from another floor. And that's just because, like you said, it's all wood, it's all nails, it's old as fuck.
Yeah.
It's, what is it, like 150 years old or something like that?
Yeah, I want to say it was built in 1848 or 1850, which is before the state was even a state.
Yeah.
Before Utah was even a state. So it's 170 years old now.
Yeah, it's an old rickety, creaky building, and like you were saying, I could see how you would go in there and kind of have that creepy, eerie, ominous feeling just because of those factors.
Mm-hmm.
But I went into it and I was just like, the mechanical operation is impressive for the time,
Right.
but for the most part, it's just like a rundown barn,
Yeah.
and it's very claustrophobic in some spots where I'm turning to the side to get through and go around different things, and it's just like it's really tight quarters, or the machinery is located in really awkward spots.
Right.
And
like the big steel wheel that I bashed my head on, came under the low bridge and lifted up my head right into the fucking steel big wheel.
yeah, there's even a clip of that where I'm like, watch out for that low bridge, and then instantly you bonked your head on it. Like I didn't even finish getting the words out, and you just like bonk.
But I think I thought it was kind of funny that how all of us were kind of enamored or just really impressed with the machinery that was there.
Yeah.
All of us were talking about it like, check this out, what does this do? I thought that was funny, and haven't really seen that in any of the other videos that I've seen people go through there, and they're just focused so much on the ghosts, and we were like, oh, check this out, this is cool.
Yeah.
We went into the fabrics house, and we were kind of relating it to the job that we do with fibers. And
what was funny about that was you were like breaking it down for T and Scott on kind of how it works in relation to what we do, and all I could think was that it was a loom, and I could think of the movie Wanted, where he had to like reach in and grab the shuttle,
Yeah.
and it would just smash his hand every time. That's all I was thinking about.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's cool. But no, it was interesting, and I think that comes from having like a production worker background, where when you see the ins and outs and how things are actually made or how things work, or even when you watch how it's made and you get to see the breakdown, that becomes so much more interesting because it's a science in and of itself.
Right.
That I think a lot of people just don't care about. But when you watch something get made, you're like, oh, that machine is cool. Or, seeing the little tiny steps and intricacies, you just get a mind for it, I think.
Yeah, almost reimagining lost technologies in our own age, like
Yeah. Or like when you go upstairs and you see all the belts for the elevators,
Mhm.
and how a modern day belt would just be like have teeth in it to drive a pulley, but these have these big cup things.
Yeah.
And that's what it grips onto, because the pulley itself is made out of wood, so it really has to have a big bite on that belt. And you're looking at this belt and going, damn, that thing's got to be strong as fuck.
Yeah.
Or when you see the big belts on the big pulleys and they're just tore up, but they're like a third of an inch thick.
Mhm.
They're just big fuck all belts, you know.
You
Shit
go
was made to
into the
last.
seam and it's just sewn together with a big leather strap. It's like, wow, man, these people are fucking industrious.
Yeah. And really brave, because if I had to be the one on that machine, I'd be like, nah, dude.
Yeah. Switch spots. I'll be the guy in the...
I'm pulling seniority. I'll go throw the bags. I don't care. I'm not using that.
Yeah, all in all, it was super fun. And I really don't... I think that maybe I was, having thought about it for a long time and wanted to do it for a long time, having a lot of preconceived notions about how things are going to happen and, what to expect. I feel like we did pretty good for our first outing. I mean...
I think so, too. I think, like I said, I knew it was going to be like a test run. It was going to be a total pilot thing of, like, even trying to figure out, how to use the equipment in a live setting, or how to, pair people up and things like that. And, like, one of the things that I learned that I'm definitely going to apply going forward, and I had talked to you about this because if you haven't looked at my Instagram, I posted like the real banger pictures that you sent me. So anybody listening, go check those pictures out. He took those on his fucking phone. They're so good. But I was like, yeah, from going forward, you should just be taking still photos. Like, don't worry about videoing or anything like that. Just stills, and maybe use, like the EMF detector or whatever, because like that really will play to your strength. After seeing those pictures, I kind of went like, man, I suddenly feel really inadequate of my own still photography that I've been working on, because you did that with a phone. But yeah, I was like, definitely have to do that. T was really impressive with his like sit down sessions that he would do with the spirit box and all those, and I really did think it would be best suited for him to basically take his own like set of equipment, take the motion lights or the cat balls and a REM pod, and I have some other stuff that I'm going to add to the gear, anemometers, with a big fan on the top, so you'll be able to see wind drift and things like that, and a stationary camera to sit and watch him, with the laser grid and all that, and just have him sit in a room and conjure or seance or whatever the fuck you want to call it, where he just tries to communicate, but have him do it by himself, because he got really good at just like not having that kind of trepidation like you and I did, where you're kind of like,
what do I say?
How do I talk to a ghost? I don't know. And he just like was a duck to water with it. So, yeah, you guys doing those things, and then Scott and I kind of being more camera operators. Because to me, I wasn't too enthused about doing like the spirit box thing. And that's my own like severe impatience. I'm not a very patient person, so it was like, if I'd ask a question and I didn't get a response in like 5 seconds, I was like, okay, this is boring.
Turn it off.
Yeah, let's go over here. So I like the exploration aspect of it much more than the other part, where it was like, oh, cool, let's go into this room and see what's going on here, or let's go into the barn and see what kind of stuff is in there, or if I just get an eerie feeling or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I was saying, just kind of play to everybody's strengths on that, and structuring it to where when I go to make a video out of it, I can actually tell a more parallel story to it, to where it's like, let's say you and I are together and we're investigating this room, and T's over here in this room and he's doing his, spirit box session. And then maybe Scott and somebody else are investigating another room, to where I can kind of intercut that in a way that you can see what we're all doing in real time at the same time.
Yeah.
And making it more cohesive, basically. Structuring the video to where it's more palatable and easy to watch. Because when you watch like Ghost Adventures, they're all always together all the time. They'll like put one guy in a room or whatever and make him sit there, but he's stuck in that room for the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's easy to, cut those two together. But where we'll have, 3, 4, 5, 6 people on the team going in to do this investigation, I'm still trying to figure out a way to structure it to where it's going to be fun and easy to watch.
Yeah. And I think that the Benson Grist Mill as an investigation spot might have a few disadvantages in that area that we were faced with in our first outing, right? Because there's 10, 15 different buildings, maybe 12, 10 maybe, and they're all spread out, and so we were trying to cover and go through every single one, but it's, in my mind, was like, man, I want to spend more time here, but I want to get into this other building.
Yeah.
And then go check out the other building and be like, shit, man, we should go back to the other building and stay there longer. And I kept on having that feeling of like, I want to spend more time in each building, but we've got an allotted amount of time that we have to try to get through all these see if there's anything in where it's at and then focus on that. But
Yeah, and we didn't even go through all the buildings.
no.
I think there was 4 or 5 we didn't go in like at all.
Yeah.
And not that they were off limits, we just didn't have the time to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it is difficult too when you split up into teams like that, where from like a rewatching of the footage standpoint, where you kind of go, fuck, I kind of remember this is where I was while these guys were doing this, and it's going to present its own challenge, but I think excuse me, that one snuck up on me. It's easily doable.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to take more practice.
Right.
And one thing I was talking to my dad about last night was because he has this this drone. It actually takes really good quality footage, and it's very user friendly. You can actually set it to just track you. So like you start it up, and you get in front of the camera, and it basically scans you, your shape, your size, what you're wearing. Oh my God, that was terrible. Sorry about that. But you can basically make it follow you without running the controls at all. It'll literally just hover at whatever point you want.
And follow you.
Yeah, or you could set it to 360 mode where it's constantly circling above you, but the camera is always pointed at you. And using that to get some establishing shots, especially in a place like Benson Grist Mill, where you have all these different buildings, and the point where it sits in conjunction with like the mountains and the lighting situation, wherever the sun is in the sky, you can get these really cool like cinematic shots to really kind of open your video with, and then go into like the history and things like that right after that, and then follow up with the actual like in the dark investigation stuff.
Yeah.
I think that would make the video so much cooler and so much easier to watch, because you get that juxtaposition of the daytime and then the story and then the nighttime part, and you actually get to see it linearly go through.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think that it would definitely something like that. So my brother, one of my brothers, is a videographer, and that's what he does for a living. Unfortunately, he lives in New Zealand now. Well, unfortunately for us,
Yeah.
unfortunate for him, but he lives in New Zealand, and he's got really great equipment. But anytime we would have like a family party or or like this last time we went bear hunting with my dad a couple of years ago before he passed, and but my brother the whole time was just filming stuff, and he had a drone, and after those parties and after our bear hunt, he would put together a video of the Easter egg hunt for the kids, or like the bear hunt that we went on with my dad, and really cool videos. And it seems like a video you would watch on YouTube or something like that, but just the ability to tell a story in a linear way through the different shots and different setups of shots, and making a cohesive story, I think is going to be key in making videos to put on YouTube for sure.
I think so, and it definitely, like, for the viewer, you get kind of a sense of completion.
Yeah.
Because you went from start to finish with it, instead of it intercutting between night and day shots, or going between like the storytelling to this moment in an investigation. Not to say you shouldn't do like callback moments where, like, if you saw an apparition of a little girl, and then you could intercut and go back to that moment where you talk about Alice or whatever, and kind of bring that back around and connect it for the audience again. But just having that front to back is going to be a big win.
Yeah. Well, definitely a learning experience, and I think for all of us. I know T has gone ghost hunting before, and is a little bit more familiar with that aspect than we were going into it.
For sure.
So I think it was a learning experience for all of us in multiple senses of actually doing it and running the equipment and learning to be more cognizant of what you're doing at at each moment. Like, I would forget I was carrying the camera and be like, oh shit, wait, what am I doing? Just filming the ground, walking around, or not even turning on the fucking hitting the record button.
Yeah. I think everybody did a really good job at showing each other on camera. Scott was particularly good at it, where it's not just, staring down a blank hallway or, just looking at your surroundings. It's getting each other's reaction or watching somebody talk, especially when somebody's, using the spirit box, and whoever has the camera is focusing the camera on that person using the spirit box, because if you don't have those shots of the people who were there, then it's like you're losing the idea that there's personalities in this, video that you're watching, and instead you're just watching like static shots of hallways and rooms and shit like that. Or even like, as cool as all the gear and stuff was in the mill, it's still more important to see the people that are there and get their reactions. And it really helps because of the juxtaposition of everybody's different personality. Or like when the raccoon was wrestling around under there, getting T's reaction would have been fucking pure gold. Like, what the fuck was that? Yeah. We did take bets on who we thought would flip out if we saw or heard something, and it was pretty unanimous it was going to be him.
Yeah.
And when
even by him,
he agreed.
Yeah.
So when he actually did flip out, I felt very validated.
Yeah.
Not that it was like a big flip out. It was just a, what the fuck was that? But he said it loud enough that I heard it over 100 feet away.
He came to see the ghost when it was just a raccoon.
And he didn't even see the raccoon.
No.
He just knew what it was.
No.
Yeah, all in all, it was a huge learning experience, and I think the most important things that I learned too were about the equipment itself, and going back and watching it and listening to it and understanding, okay, this piece of gear worked but this didn't, or this worked and this didn't. So understanding that I need to change up a lot of things, and I need to test it better before I, just try to field it right away.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a different curve, and modifying the kit to actually have power on the go to keep things charged and operational, because cameras discharge batteries super quick.
Yeah.
And streamlining the process of like changing SD cards and things like that. So there was a lot that I took away from that. But the number one thing was just structure, and kind of having to understand that I have to take kind of more of a leadership role and say, okay, you do this and you do this, and then you two pair up and you go here and you do this, and then meet back at such and such time or whatever.
Yeah.
And just having that like mind for not only what we're doing, but how it's going to translate into a video that other people are going to watch.
Yeah, especially if you have a vision of how you want your video to be structured if you have that set in your mind of how, certain way that you want to do it, I don't think any of us would have a problem with you just telling us what you want us to do.
And then I wouldn't think anybody would.
Right.
It's just more like kind of understanding everybody's role, and if I'm editing it, this is what I need to make the editing easier,
right,
to do this thing. And I really did enjoy how everybody kind of wanted to input, and everybody wanted to put in their own thoughts and own ideas or structure certain things in a certain way. I thought that was great. Or like I could hear T, upstairs, here, Scott, this is what I'm thinking, and put this here and do this here and do that. Like, stuff like that's great.
Yeah.
And it lets everybody take a big piece of that ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's more important because then everybody's so much more invested rather than just be told what to do all the time, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And that's where I was, I mean, not even think, I would just go in there and start trying to talk to a ghost. And it's like, well, I should probably set some shit up first. Like, set up the recorder, get this shot right.
Yeah, I definitely ran into that a lot myself, where it was just kind of discarding a lot of what was put in place for that, just to go right for the meat and skip the potatoes kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was a fault on anybody. It was just like you get into that moment and into that mindset of like, okay, this is what I'm here to do, but you tend to forget all the like steps you should put into place beforehand.
Right. To capture it if anything comes through.
Yeah, because it's your experience is great, but if nobody saw it or heard it or whatever, then it's just your experience.
Yeah.
Versus if you capture it, especially on video or even on audio, or other people are in the room and see like the motion activated cat toys go off, then we all share that experience, and then we get to share that through a video.
I didn't even really think about that until now, how shitty I would feel if I actually saw a shadow moving through the mill and didn't capture it on camera. Did you see that? Did you record it? No. But I saw it.
This was funny, and I remember telling you this was, we were getting toward the end of things, and I left the mill to go make sure all the doors were locked up.
Uh-huh.
And so I just had, my flashlight pointed at the ground so I could see where I was walking. But I'd go up and I'd lock the door, and I'm like looking in the window of each room as I'm locking it, and I go, wouldn't that be just the fucking worst to actually see something while I'm locking up these rooms and I don't have a camera with me or anything? It's just my flashlight.
Yeah.
That would just be the worst.
I think maybe we should, man. Just each one of us buy a GoPro to wear like on a vest thing, set up like a YouTuber setup.
I honestly think the more cameras we have, the better.
Yeah.
And everybody, if everybody did have their own GoPro or action camera, then they could review that footage, and then I'll take like all the overall footage, and then when you guys watch yours, you go, okay, I think I caught something at this time point, this time point, and this time point, mark it down, and then I'll take that footage and intercut it with what I have, and then we would have so much more. But it's a process to go through all the footage.
Oh, for sure. There's probably, we were there for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 6 hours.
Yeah.
And had 4 cameras, 5 with T's GoPro.
Yeah.
So you have to, 5 times 6 is 30 hours of footage, pretty much.
Well, and you almost have to watch it twice.
Yeah.
So, because like the first time, I'm watching it because I'm watching all of us. And then I would turn around and play the video back again, and I'm watching all the background. I'm watching in all the corners and the dark spots, and not looking at the focal point of the person, but looking at everything else, just to see if I can see anything.
Right. And that's like watching Nuke's top 5 videos and a lot of the paranormal investigation shows. Most of the time, whatever happens will happen in the background or just in like a moving shot, and you see something moving in the background that shouldn't be moving. And a lot of, like on Nuke's top 5, like a lot of those videos, the people themselves that were recording it didn't even catch it. It was like
the viewer caught it.
That went through it and frame by frame, pretty much, and then ended up catching something that they didn't even know that they had.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can see where that can take. I wonder if there's a business that just does that, goes through your footage. Maybe we can start a business.
Ooh, there we go. We just basically sit here and watch other people's boring
Send
ass home
me
videos.
your shit, and then we'll charge you money and say tell you if you have anything.
Yeah, we'll write it down on a piece of paper for you.
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah, no, solid business plan. So let's close this one out with one final question. What was like your favorite moment of Benson Grist Mill?
I think probably the first building that we went into, and just the realization of that we're actually doing it. You know, we're actually finally there and doing it. Just the culmination of years and years of talking about it, and then finally getting into the action of doing it was really super cool. That and the lightsaber duel.
The lightsaber duel was funny, and at first it was like, okay, this is funny. We really suck at this, but it's enjoyable. And then Scott started swinging really fucking hard, and he got me right there on the finger, and I was just like, fuck, that hurt.
Don't hurt me! Don't hurt me!
And he's like, don't hurt me. And it's like, I wasn't mad. I was just like, dude, we're not trying to kill each other. And he just like starts fucking flailing, and you can't even get in there because he's flailing so fast. And I'm just like, yeah, one of us is going to get hurt real bad if we don't stop.
Yeah.
And I kind of go, I spent a lot of money on this dental work. I don't want anything to fuck it up. Not Scott flailing a lightsaber at my face.
Yeah.
Yeah, just those, the first moments, you know, when the cameras came out and, like, everybody was so giddy.
Yeah.
It was, like, electric. And that was, I think, my favorite thing about the whole experience was just, like, how everybody was just able to not think about anything else but what we were doing in that moment.
Right.
And it kind of reminds me of, like, you know, when I used to play airsoft a lot, because you get into that moment and you're doing this thing that you think about doing so much, and you're in it, and you just, like, you're not worried about your bills or, you know, fuck, I gotta register my car or anything like that. It's just what you're doing right then and there.
Yeah.
And it's such a great feeling.
Yeah. And it's a weird feeling too, because I mean, of course I was super excited about doing it because we talked about it for so long, and I, you know, spent my entire life pretty much watching scary movies and finding stuff now that the internet is a thing, or since the internet is a thing now. Tracking down videos and watching videos of apparent paranormal activity caught on camera. I've done that ever since I knew how to Google shit. You know, that's what I was looking up. One of the things I was looking up. But yeah, so to have all that energy and excitement on top of the excitement and of the unknown of possibly catching something, it was just almost like a slow drip of an adrenaline rush. Like,
Yeah.
you have that anticipation, but the adrenaline isn't right there yet. It's like slowly leaking in, but I don't know. It was good.
It's definitely electric. Like,
Yeah.
I felt like there were moments I had to stop myself from, like, running to another building.
Yeah.
Like, oh, let's go check this out. Let's go. Like you're a little kid at an amusement park. Let's go to this ride. Let's go to this ride.
And trying not to just be smiling the whole time when you're filming some supposed scary thing.
But it's really nothing
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
No, it was fun. I'm looking forward to the next one. As far as Benson Grist Mill goes, I wouldn't mind doing that one again.
Yeah. Maybe, and if there's anybody out there that's listening that wants to maybe find out information about how to get in contact with these people, hit up Dave-Inci's code, or look up Dave-Inci's code.
Wait, what was the acronym for the team? It was P.I.S.S, right?
Yeah. Paranormal Investigation Super Squad.
Super Squad. That's right. P.I.S. We're getting shirts that say P.I.S. I dig it. Anyway, it was fun. I'm glad we sat down and talked about it after the fact. So you kind of get like that fulfillment
Yeah.
from it. And it would have been cool if everybody else showed up, but texting back is hard, I guess. But yeah, I'm glad we sat down and talked about this.
Me too.
All right, I love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.